All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb Thursday afternoon edition. I'm Jeff Goodman. Doug will be along here in a second, but go ahead in the meantime and scan that QR code to send us your questions, your thoughts, your concerns. Anything that you have to rip on Doug is greatly appreciated. And give us a follow on Instagram at Watch Stadium. But it was a crazy Wednesday, and I don't know if anybody saw all of this coming. Maybe some of it, but certainly not UConn losing to Seton Hall, a very mediocre Seton Hall team that probably is headed, at best case scenario, to the NIT. And, you know, we have built up the UConn Huskies to be one of the top three teams, myself included, with the way they have played lately. Went into Fog Allen, almost beat Kansas within a possession of winning in Lawrence, beat Carolina, beat Gonzaga. They certainly look like the type of team that wasn't going to have any trouble going on the road to Seton Hall. But again, life on the road in college basketball, not easy at all. Villanova pulls the upset on the day that Doug McDermott's number gets retired in Omaha against Creighton. Villanova couldn't score in the first half, but they come out, play a great second half, and get Creighton in overtime for a huge win for Kyle Neptune and the Wildcats. North Carolina takes down one of the four final undefeated teams in the country, the Oklahoma Sooners, and R.J. Davis continues to go on a tear there. Duke Baylor at MSG, battle of two ranked teams. Baylor coming off that Michigan State embarrassment, and Duke kind of needing to get back on track going into the holidays. So Jared McCain will talk about that certainly in a little bit, how he's been able to really thrive without Tyrese Proctor in the lineup. And then the late night game, Arizona over Alabama. It was close for a while. Really good game for the first probably 30 minutes, and then Arizona pulled away towards the end in Phoenix on a semi-neutral court. But certainly the Wildcats looking in a bounce-back type game after losing to Purdue and Indy, and they've got FAU coming up this week. So a ton on tap last night, and we're going to start, Doug, with that upset from Shaheen Holloway and Seton Hall beating UConn, which, again, I didn't expect. I don't think you expected it. But, again, like Donovan Clingan gets hurt, and we don't know how bad it is. He's going to have tests today on that leg, and he's had foot injuries here preseason throughout the early part of the season. And then Cam Spencer puts up a dud and doesn't play well. And, listen, UConn's good, but they're not that good where they can win on the road with a C or a D-plus performance.
No question. And it's eerily similar to what we saw last year from UConn, right? Dominating the non-conference, then you get the conference play, like, whoa, hold on a second. I also think that the point you got to at the end, there's two parts to it. One, no one's really good enough to have a C or D performance and win, right? The distance between the best teams and the bottom teams in the league is not that great. It truly isn't. And then, you know, no matter, even the deepest team, and UConn's pretty deep, but it's not like it used to be 20 years ago. You lose a guy, and you and I talked about this. A lot of these losses in the non-conference, you're like, man, St. Louis is an example. St. Louis got beat by 40 by Southern Illinois. Part of it was, you know, you had two guys that weren't eligible, and you had two guys that were hurt. Right? Last night they were at least competitive with NC State. They played better the last couple games. Why? Well, they get guys eligible, and the guys that are hurt are getting healthy. So I think the point is on the macro level is that no one has great depth. No one, even the deepest teams. And so when you're losing a guy, or a guy doesn't play well, or a guy gets in foul trouble, it can dramatically change the outcome of one game. That one was the surprise. You know, like I told you, as you know, I thought Nova would keep that thing close. I didn't think they'd win. I thought it was the style that made the fight. It was a perfect setup for them. You have a guy who can shoot the ball from three as their center, brings Kalkenbrenner out, completely changes Creighton, and they're athletic enough to get into Creighton. But that one was a surprise. On the other hand, we shouldn't be surprised because this is UConn. Like, they should feel good about their chance to win a national championship because this is kind of what they did last year is what they're suddenly doing this year.
Yeah, and again, listen, life on the road isn't easy in league play. It's not like Seton Hall's a great team, but they're capable. They're certainly capable. Kadari Richmond's a man, a grown man, and he was dominant last night, 23 points, 8 steals, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. It really doesn't change my opinion of the Huskies at all, Doug. Now, what could change my opinion of the Huskies is if Donovan Clingan is hurt again. Because, again, he's gone through these foot issues, one foot, then the other. Now, I don't know if it's foot or ankle. I think Hurley said it was ankle, but I'm not completely sold it's not foot again here. And if he's out an extended period of time with a big boy like that, with a foot injury and constant nagging foot injuries, you do start to worry, don't you, Doug?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Feet, hips are in many ways more problematic than knees these days, and for big guys especially. So I'm with you. And then, look, can we be honest? What it looks like to have a freshman. You mentioned Kadar Richmond's a grown man, right? Solomon Ball was bad last night. I think, not good. And then I love Stephon Castle, but he wasn't great. He looked like a freshman. This is what 18-year-olds look like. It really is. Always been this way. It's now exponentially worse or more obvious when you're playing youth because you're going against 5th and 6th year dudes. And you're on the road. So all of those things were all kind of factors. They're not excuses or explanations. And the question becomes for Seton Hall, can they now use this and buttress it? You're talking about, hey, does this hurt? Does this snowball? The same thing in a positive snowball for Seton Hall as we've been searching for who out of that second tier the Big East is going to separate themselves. And that second tier has had a really good week, right? Providence with a huge home win over Marquette. Nova with a gigantic road win over Creighton. And Seton Hall at home against UConn. So this is part of the great thing with having the big boys at the top is now every win against those teams is a season-changing win in terms of not just quad one, but the overall respect we have for your team.
Yeah, and even St. John's beats Xavier last night, and the Johnnies are playing better, and maybe they could put themselves into the equation. But Villanova, I just didn't see them going to Omaha. Like you said, playing them close is one thing. I saw that. But beating them on the night when Doug McDermott's number is retired as well, Doug, and we know, Creighton's can score, and they look great in the first half. And you just wonder, did they take their foot off the gas a little bit in that second half? Dixon was great throughout. But again, without a high-level point guard, and Mark Armstrong was pretty good in the second half. He was not good in the first 20 minutes, and that's why Villanova scored 24 points in the first half. It's hard for them to manufacture points when you don't have anybody making it easy for, whether it's Tyler Burton, and they're without Justin Moore. That's the other part. That's the other part of this win, Doug, that says a lot about both teams, about Villanova, because they're capable of winning a game like this on the road in a hostile environment, and about Creighton, and maybe we put too much on Creighton. Maybe they're just not that good, Doug. Maybe they're just okay.
I think they're as good as they were perceived in the preseason. I don't think they're as bad as the freak out will be today. Here's the reality. They got really 4 dudes. Okay? Mason Miller's a nice player. He's young. I think eventually he'll be a dude there, but he's not yet. So when you have Baylor Shireman go 0 of 7, when you can get into Stephen Ashworth the way they did, as you point out, Ashworth's actually I consider him a friend.
You like
so
I almost feel like you're too close to that one. Yeah.
But I can also tell you, he didn't play the point at Utah State. He didn't. He's a combo guard. He's a very good shooter. He's older. He's mature. He's a great shooter and a great dude. But he can't. They have to play one way defensively, and it's hard to play. So some of this is the style, right? The way they play defensively is they want you to take twos and force you inside to Kalkenbrenner. The problem is that when Eric Dixon's taking 10, making 4 threes, Kalkenbrenner has to come out, and it's a house of cards defensively. Additionally, they don't, outside of Trey Alexander, they don't really have anybody who gets in the lane. And when Baylor Shireman's not making shots, and Ashworth couldn't get off and get shots either, again, with the athleticism and the tenacity of Nova's defense, I thought it was a style athletic win. Now, does that mean that Creighton can make you look really bad? But just remember, they are the most three-point dependent team in the country, not just on offense, how they play on defense. And The game plan for Nova was the game plan of Colorado State. So some of this is you have to have the personnel for it, athletic backcourt, stretch five. You have to have discipline to it, and you got to catch them on a little bit of an off night. So, yeah, they're up 10. You got to win that game if you're CU. But I think so many people have been so down on Villanova that I just think it's almost comical. You sit there and go like, we were down on Villanova and now getting the league play, and here we go again. So going to be interesting to see how the Big East evolves as we get into January.
Yeah, Creighton, kind of the both teams, kind of Jekyll and Hyde, Villanova and Creighton. One team that is not Jekyll and Hyde, the Louisville Cardinals. Coming up, could tonight be the end of the line for Kenny Payne in his head coaching career at Louisville, or will an upset, or even maybe keeping it close against rival Kentucky, keep him around? That and more next on Goodman versus Gottlieb. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb, Thursday afternoon. And we already discussed UConn's loss to Seton Hall, Villanova's big win on the road against Creighton. Now it's time to talk a little bit about some of those other big games from last night, including the matchup down in Charlotte, the Jumpman Invitational, Douglas, where North Carolina beat the Oklahoma Sooners and knocked them from the Final Four undefeateds. And you know who's been great? R.J. Davis has been absolutely sensational this year, and I don't think anyone's given him enough credit. While Armando Bacot has continued to struggle a little bit, he was better last night, but still doesn't look quite like himself or the Bacot that he looked like the last couple of years. because they got other players around him. But, man, R.J. Davis, I think what Hubert's done with him, and maybe it's the departure of Caleb Love a little bit, Doug, that's allowed him to just be free and attack and play off the ball, especially with the freshman Elliot Cadeau handling a lot of the ball handling, the point guard duties, because RJ is really more of an undersized 2, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a combo guard. It's also like, let's be honest, that when you have Harrison Ingram and you have Cormac Ryan, it opens up the floor for you as well. So the whole thing works. I mean, look, if we work backwards, let's talk Oklahoma for a second, who was undefeated, probably the surprise of the Big 12. Part of it was, and I think if you ask the OU guys, they'd be like, we hadn't really played anybody. I know they beat Arkansas, and we look at Arkansas like the team that beat Duke, but that was kind of an out-of-body experience when they beat Duke. Right? The biggest crowd they've ever had. Filipowski got into foul trouble. They played out of their mind. Other than that, Arkansas has been very average at best. Iowa, not great, right? These are the big wins that they had so far this year. Providence wins a good win, okay, and it was a no-doubter by 21. And then USC's been one of the disappointing teams so far in the country. But I think what got exposed for Oklahoma is they're a 5-man away from competing in for that top tier in the Big 12. And that plays into, you got Armando Bacot. They have Sam Godwin, right? Sam Godwin wasn't a starter when he was at where was he at? They just played Oklahoma State. What's the school? Shoot, in South Carolina. Why am I not Winthrop? The other one.
Wofford.
Right? So again, part of it is level of competition, right? That OU was fine until you play somebody with a legit 5, and Bacot is kind of disappointing till he goes against Sam Godwin. So that's part of it. But in terms of R.J. Davis, absolutely. I mean, look, they had bad chemistry last year, and if you want to go down the rabbit hole of research and go to Reddit and try and figure out what was rumored,
No, don't tell anybody. Hey, no Reddit for that. Don't check Reddit for that.
Go for it. Whatever you want to do. The point is, the chemistry is better, the spacing is better, and look, the confidence is better. So much of the stuff with kids is about confidence and putting pressure on themselves. I mean, it's a real thing that a lot of kids that stay around, and I think this North Carolina team suffered from that. We all point to the off the court stuff or rumors or whatever, but the on the court aspect of, he can be 24, I don't care. When you have huge expectations of you to perform on a nightly basis. One, if the kids were that good, they wouldn't be playing in college for their 4th, 5th year. They just wouldn't. Secondly, like, those weighty expectations are hard to deal with because everybody feels them. So when you get done playing and you only have 5-6 points, you lose the way North Carolina lost last year as preseason number 1. Everybody's calling, everybody's blowing you up. It's the coach's fault. It's the other player's fault. It's college basketball's fault. You should have left. You should have gotten more money. You should have gone out, whatever. You take away that pressure. You space the floor. You take away any sort of locker room issues. And now all of a sudden, everybody's the better because of it. And I think that's what's going on in North Carolina with R.J. Davis.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're a different team. Again, I think the departure of Caleb Love just allows R.J. Davis to be more of kind of who he needs to be. And like you said, they surround him with shooters. Less is on the shoulders of Armando Bacot. But I'll tell you what, getting to know Bacot over the years, I'll say this about him. He's about as self-aware as any player I've ever been around. Yeah. No excuses. He knows he's not playing well. He knows he's got to play better. And again, I think that's one of the beauties of him. Now, is there a vocal leader on that team? I don't know. So Duke, it was a good win for both teams down at Tobacco Road because Carolina beats Oklahoma on a neutral court, although that one was certainly more pro-Carolina. Duke's win was also more pro-Duke because anytime they go to Madison Square Garden, it's going to be a big-time Duke crowd. And they beat Baylor. And Baylor was coming off a spanking against Michigan State in Detroit. And I actually thought they handled themselves fairly well in this game because I was worried it was really going to get away from them. Duke won going away at the end. But my biggest takeaway from this, Doug, is the emergence, and I loved him coming to the year, of freshman Jared McCain without Tyrese Proctor in the lineup. It's allowed him to kind of get more reps, get more, honestly, have the ball in his hands more. Have the ball in his hands more, because Proctor had the ball in his hands a lot, but I felt like he just wasn't doing anything productive with it. So now McCain's getting more time, and now the big question is going to be, when Proctor comes back, what do you do if you're John Shire now? What do? Do you bring him off the bench? Because that might be the best thing to make him earn it. Make him earn it at this point, because Duke's playing well without him.
I think you bring him off the bench. I just do. Because it wasn't like Tyrese Proctor was killing it before he got hurt. He was very, very up and down. And like this is the reality to what happens. Guy gets hurt, somebody steps up, gets more minutes. I think Caleb Foster looked more comfortable last night as well. And like part of it, this is the old addition by subtraction. It doesn't mean that Tyrese Proctor is a bad kid or a bad player. But it's really hard to play with one eye on the bench, to think I missed a shot and I'm coming out, or I missed an assignment and I'm coming out. You got to play through stuff. It's one of the things that it's a hard balance for coaches. Like sometimes you're playing too many guys and you're like, well, that guy didn't play well. One reason he didn't play well is because he thinks he's coming out, or he did come out when he's not playing well, instead of playing through it. So the Duke kids, they were getting beat. They got punched in the mouth. They got a chance to play through it. But I thought, that's why Jared McCain, and I've tried to tell people, you already knew this, but there was so much hype around Bronny James. Okay, so Bronny James, Southern California basketball player, wasn't one of the 5 or 10 best players in Southern California last year as a senior in high school. Like, you can tell me he's a great defender in UIBL. You can tell me that he's a good blend player. I agree with you. I think he's going to eventually be a really good college basketball player. I don't think no one has watched him play and goes, that's an NBA player as of right now. No one. Anybody else of it says that is full of it. Okay. Unfortunately. Okay. Jared McCain, on the other hand, was the best player in Southern California last year. Right. Jared McCain, Dusty Stromer, Caleb Foster. Those were the dudes that were guards. And McCain looked uncomfortable when we saw him in Chicago. He's kind of playing off the ball, kind of playing with the ball, didn't know. He looked like a freshman who had some talent, who didn't really know what to do what. Now you give him 30 minutes where he can play through a mistake. That's the player that he's taught. Now, there's going to be games in which he stinks. Okay? And like, Baylor's not a complete team either. The kid Jaden Nunn, he didn't play very well last night either. Their best player is a freshman they're going to have ups and downs as well. But in just the Duke thing, like, yeah, I think this is the hard thing about coaching, right? I don't know what you had to do to get Tyrese Proctor to come back. I don't know how it works in terms of their NIL and their pecking order. But if you're just coaching the team, that's your 5. And Ryan Young comes off the bench, and Tyrese Proctor comes off the bench. That's how you live.
Yeah, I'm back to where I think Duke, again, is the favorite to win the ACC regular season. I do. I mean, I know Virginia's got Tony Bennett. I know Carolina's playing well. I just think the upside for Duke is going to be higher as the season goes along. They're young right now in some areas, where Carolina's older. I just think McCain's got a high ceiling. He can score from all 3 levels. Foster, like you said, they're going to be up and down because they're kind of competing for similar minutes right now. But I think you got to push the right buttons with Tyrese Proctor. And if John Shire can figure that part out, that's the ceiling for Duke. Because we know what you're getting for Filipowski, for Ryan Young, for some of those other guys. But Proctor is a first-round talent, but we just haven't seen it a whole lot before he got injured. And he may be out still another, go ahead.
You also have, listen, you have Power off the bench. You think about it, you come with Proctor off the bench, you come with Power off the bench, you come with Ryan Young off the bench. That's an 8-guy team. You got some other dudes there as well. I thought Roach gave you really good minutes last night. You forget, you're looking for veterans. There's a guy, and he seemed comfortable. But just this thing, there's 200 minutes. Okay, there's 200 minutes to split up among your 13 scholarship players. And, anyone who's ever coached, let alone coached at the college level, you're like, man, that guy's not playing well. Or that guy, he did something, my non-negotiable. I told him I'd take him out. Like, sometimes you got to let guys play through some stuff. And that's what injuries do, is injuries sometimes, UConn, it exposes you. But sometimes it ends up allowing players to play through mistakes. And when you can play through mistakes and see success, we get back to that confidence piece. It's a huge piece to any basketball player, especially a freshman and a talented one like Jared McCain and Caleb Foster.
All right, so the late game, at least out here in the East Coast, was Arizona, Alabama in Phoenix. I had to stay up till about 1 a.m. for that one. But Arizona pulled away at the end. It was close throughout. In fact, Alabama, led for a good portion of it, even though they couldn't make a three. Well, neither team really shot it well, but Alabama shot 43s, made 8 of them. Arizona showed, I think, kind of what they are, Doug, which is a very balanced team. They have 5 guys in double figures. Caleb Love was terrible early and then kind of turned it on in the final stretch where they did pull away. But, they got Ballo. Boswell was pretty good. The most underrated player on that team is Pelle Larsson. He just does everything, man. He's so efficient. So I like this Arizona team. They're not overpowering, but they don't have a lot of holes. And that's why I like this Arizona team. A guy can have an off night, and you could still beat a team like Alabama. And they didn't really make shots either. Arizona didn't from 3.
No, and now they got FAU before you get to Christmas break. And I think there's a difference there in level of talent at Arizona than FAU, despite the fact we all love FAU. We think they're an NCAA tournament team and going to be a hard out. But, again, let's see how they handle it. I know they lost by 8 to Purdue. That was a great competitive college basketball game. What I love for Arizona is how their Pac-12 schedule lines out. Now, keep in mind that they benefit from not only a great home court advantage, but it's a league that doesn't have great home court advantages as much anymore, right? Like, go back to when I played, Stanford was a tough place to play. It's not now. Cal was a tough place to play. It's not now. Washington, we'll see by the time they go. I don't think they don't go to Washington this year. It's a weird scheduling quirk where they don't go to UW, right? That's a tough place. They do go to Wazoo, which is a really long trip. And they go to Colorado and Utah. The altitude's tough. But, I see there's a window there where they don't lose a Pac-12 game. I mean it. Maybe till the hardest games they're going to have in this league, okay, truthfully, are probably USC last game of the year on the road, the Colorado-Utah Mountain Tour there.
Yeah, at Colorado. That'll be the hardest.
Yeah, but look, you play back-to-back, you play in the altitude. You're going to get a zoo every time you play on the road. And then maybe Oregon. Tell me where their losses are. Tell me where their losses are. The league is not very good.
No, but they're not that dominant that they're not going to go through there without a couple losses. That's all I'll say is they're not that dominant.
Tell me, no one's beating them in Tucson in that league. No one's beating them in Tucson.
Correct.
Okay. So that's half of the games, right?
Dude, UConn just lost to Seton Hall.
On the road.
Right.
On the road. Okay.
Yes.
So are they losing to Cal or Stanford on the road? Stanford?
No.
Maybe, but literally, they play Stanford. Stanford doesn't draw anyway. They play Stanford on New Year's Eve. There will be no one there. No one. Okay? So it's a neutral site game. Do I give Stanford a chance? But I would be stunned if they lost that one. I don't think. Tell me the losses in this league.
Well, they could lose at USC, or by the time they play UCLA, it's still a rivalry. They could lose to Colorado at Utah. Either one of those.
Those are the ones.
So that's 4. That's 4. They'll lose 1, if not 2 of those 4. They will. They're not. They're not that overpowering that they're going to be able to run through those 4.
They're good. Here's what's different about it. Okay, they defend with some toughness.
Sure. Sure.
Right?
How many NBA guys?
I mean,
How
like,
many NBA
look,
guys do they have on their roster, Doug? How many NBA guys on Arizona's roster?
I think they have guys that'll play in the NBA. They don't have NBA players, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
Larson will
Yes.
play in the NBA. That dog will hunt in the NBA. I believe it. Balo will probably play in the NBA. But are they like NBA players, like starters? Like probably not. But you know, that's how you win. You get older players that they have one agenda to win now, because that's all that matters to them, because the league isn't really a thing for them. You have a guard in your backcourt who's played for a national championship. Who has that? You know? So, but I think the biggest thing, and look, I've been critical of Tommy's toughness and defense, especially in his backcourt, since he's gotten there. He's done an amazing job. But I also thought it was personnel based. And I'm not here to crush Kirk Risa. Okay? He's a shooter. He was a talker. He was not tough. He was not a game changer defensively. And they have much better toughness now in that backcourt. I'm a much bigger buyer into this Arizona team to get to a Final Four than I was the previous two incarnations.
All right, let's get to the big game of the night, Douglas. I think it's a 13-point spread right now. Kentucky, John Calipari, Kenny Payne in Louisville. It used to be a game that I would go to every single year. It used to be right after Christmas. And I haven't been in years because it hasn't been, well, a few years because it hasn't been overly relevant. Tonight, the only relevance it has is about whether or not this is Kenny Payne's last game coaching at Louisville. And I think there's a chance it is if he loses or gets embarrassed. I just think this could be the end of the line for Kenny Payne. And it's been, honestly, Doug, I hate to say it because, again, we've talked about Kenny Payne, the human being, and how good a guy he is. This has been arguably the worst hire I've ever seen. Like, honestly, since I started covering the sport, I'm not sure if we've seen a worse hire, because you look at Kenny Payne's record. He's won 9 games in his tenure here, in a year and a third, at one of the best programs in America. Now, I know, again, when he took it over, they were under NCAA investigation, and Chris Mack didn't leave it in the best spot. But you got the portal, you got NIL, you're played there, so you've got relationships there. You know, like the fact that they've been this bad, and they're losing to low majors at home. They're getting blown out. They lose to DePaul badly. This has been the ultimate train wreck, Doug. Do you give him any shot of even competing tonight against Kentucky? Now, I'll say this, Doug. If I'm Calipari, I'm going to let him keep it close because I want Kenny Payne there as long as possible.
Yeah, I mean, here's what it is, okay? And I just had this honest conversation with somebody. If you looked at Kenny Payne's resume, for this job, would you say it's a good one?
Well, not if you look deep into it, because if you look deep into it, you would say he was an assistant at Oregon, where Nike gave him players, and then he was an assistant at Kentucky, where my daughter could have recruited players to John Calipari in Kentucky. So I don't know what you're asking, but I think if you look deep into it.
What I'm saying here is, like, this is the conventional, smart, rewarded hire that everybody was like, yeah, that'll work, right? That'll work.
No.
If you hire a really good staff, you didn't think it would work when you got the job.
Hell no. No. I thought it was a terrible hire.
Well, I didn't think he was going to be a great coach, because I've been to Kentucky's practices, I've been to Oregon's practices. And if you've ever been to an Oregon practice, there's one voice. It's not his. If you ever been to a Kentucky practice, there's one voice. It's not his. I'm saying, like, the average fan at home is like, oh man, you're the number one assistant at Oregon, number one assistant at Kentucky, you're John Calipari's right hand dude. You'll get dudes, hire a staff that can really coach, and you'll be fine. But yeah, it's been bad. And I do feel bad because, you know, I think Nolan Smith's a good dude. I think Danny Manning's a really good dude. And I think Kenny Payne, I've never heard anybody go like, Kenny Payne's a bad dude. Okay. But in the changing landscape of college basketball, though, I would point out that a lot of people operate on the assumption that just get somebody that gets dudes. If you have better players, you have 5 better X's and they have 5 better O's, you're going to be fine. And that's not the case. Now, 1, they haven't gotten 5 better X's, but 2, you got to know what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, like, dead man walking, it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I don't know how it ends tonight. I don't think if you're John Calipari, you take it easy on anybody. Because I don't.
I'm kidding, sort of. I'm sort of kidding.
I look, this is I had this exact same conversation with 2 friends last night. Like, well, if you blow him out, then he's going to get fired. And now all of a sudden they'll get a dude in there. And now you're competing and recruiting with at Louisville. They want to be good really, really badly. Here's what really happens. Here's how it really works nowadays with the NIL. Is you have a bunch of NIL, you got these guys, and you got to kind of control the program and work with the donors. Hey, man, I need money for this kid. Hey, man, I need money for that kid, et cetera, et cetera. You lose your job, not just when you lose game. You lose your job when you lose the donors. Because you lose the donors and they'll go like, hey, I'm not giving another penny until that guy is gone. That's really how it works. And unfortunately, if you get, I mean, they've already been embarrassed enough this year. And it's not as much the play. The play is not good, but what are you doing with the press conferences? What are we doing here?
It's been a disaster all around.
It makes the Billy Gillespie hire look like a great hire.
I know.
Right?
Very true.
It
Very
does.
true. All right, let's focus on some positives. It's a season of giving. So we're going to come back. We're going to spread some holiday cheer. I know that's something Doug doesn't do very well. Hand out some gifts across college basketball. Check it out on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb here, and we are giving out some presents for Christmas, Douglas. And I'm going to start with Penny Hardaway. Penny Hardaway, give me something that you would give to Penny Hardaway right now for Christmas.
Oh, I think you need to give him an apology. I do.
All right. The floor is mine. I will apologize to Penny Hardaway because a year ago I did ask the question, was Penny Hardaway the right guy to lead the Memphis program? And what I will say is he's doing a hell of a job this year. Finally, though, what I was really getting at a year ago, Doug, was were Memphis fans really content and happy with these first-round exits? Were they content with just getting in the NCAA tournament? No, I will give Penny Hardaway, here's what I'm giving him. The Christmas present I'm really giving him is a healthy Naquan Tomlin, who just transferred there, a healthy and eligible Naquan Tomlin. Transferred from Kansas State. He was suspended, and they're trying to get him. He graduated, trying to get him on the floor here soon. Now, I'm told also there was an ankle injury recently as well. It's not too bad.
I've been told there's a world where Naquan Tomlin doesn't play this year, so he can test the waters and maybe go to the NBA or maybe come back and play next year. So that's what I've been told, is that was part of the deal. Was they had a shot at him, they went headlong, we'll take him. And because he's eligible to play, he graduated from Kansas State. You graduate, you can transfer, you can play right away. He can play tomorrow.
They're waiting for his grades. They were waiting for his grades, so he couldn't play. Maybe he could play tomorrow if they got all his grades in and all his paperwork.
Correct. But there isn't a waiver process he has to go through, so people understand. Like, graduated from college, and really,
what are you giving Penny? What are you giving Penny? Give me what you're really giving Penny, other than the apology from me. Is there anything you're giving Penny for Christmas?
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a book that a friend of mine gave me. Okay, yeah, it's called The First 90 Days. Because I think the mistakes that were made by Memphis early on were made in the first 90 days, right? Because like it looked bad. You bring in Mike Miller, and then you constantly had shuffling of assistants. Larry Brown was there, then he's not there, right? Like I think they were kind of spitballing things, whereas probably Penny thought, I show up, I'll get dudes, and they did. But the first 90 days, like, the Wiseman thing was a disaster. Let's just call it like it is. He played 3 games. Played 3 games. So I would give him the book of the first 90 days. First 90 days tells you what you should do on a new job with 90 days. Those are mistakes to make. Now he's settled in. Penny's still the dude in Memphis. He's understood you got to have veteran players, older players. You can't win with kids. He's got an older team. And he's not bringing in outside advisors nearly as much. He's coaching ball, which he knows really well. So I think it's The First 90 Days is a good book he should pick up. I'll send it to him for Christmas.
All right. And he'll appreciate that. Make sure you put your name on it. Maybe autograph it. Kevin McCullough, the next one. Started his career at Texas Tech, second year at Kansas, and he is playing like an absolute All-American. I actually talked to him for a while yesterday. And what I'm going to give Kevin McCullough is at the end of the year, I'm going to give him a spot in the first round because he has paid his dues, worked for it. As he said to me, everybody runs their own race. Everybody runs their own race. He thought he was going to be gone after a year or two to the NBA. Then after last year, Kansas was recruiting other guys. They didn't think he was coming back at all. And he went to the combine, came back, realized he wasn't going to be a first-round pick, and told Bill Self, hey, you know what? I'm going to come back for another run. So I'm going to give him a slot in that first round because I think he's earned it.
I love that. I love that. I mean, honestly, like, I look at him and I think in fast forwarding towards the NBA draft, it's like you want him to see the Murray twins, right? Their story, and, both of them were seen as too old when they were drafted. Oh, you're too old. How about just good and know who you are, So maybe I just get him a mirror. Hey, be appreciative of who you are, which, so many kids try and be something they're not. And McCullough has kind of figured out, hey, here's who I am. Here's where I fit. Here's where I can play in the NBA. He's improved as a shooter, a decision maker. And, of course, Bill's the best at creating mismatches for him, getting big guys on him that can't guard him. So I appreciate that he's figuring out who he is. If the Murray twins want to write a book or their story becomes a documentary, that's what I get for him or get for NBA teams. Because, again, I don't think he's going to be Keegan Murray. But it's, yeah, we do this thing. We're like, well, he's only 19. So he's going to be like, or you get a 22-year-old who knows who he is, knows what he does, makes shots, stays out of the way, doesn't have an ego, failed before, been told no before. And in that first rookie contract, you get a lot more out of it. End of the first round is a great spot for him.
All right, the next one. UCLA head coach Mick Cronin. I'm going to read you a quote before I tell you what I'm going to give him. He said, did we try to get older transfers? This was after the loss the other night to Riverside. Absolutely. So did the Reds, but the Dodgers got them. I'm gonna give Mick some NIL because obviously that's what he needs, right? He doesn't have enough NIL out there to get some dudes. Instead, he has to recruit a bunch of international guys because they're not quite as interested in NIL. They want to play in LA. They know what LA is. But I'm gonna make it short and sweet, Doug. I'm gonna give him a ton of NIL.
Bro, you can give that to any coach. Any coach would be like, save the everything else. Just give me some money in NIL and I can make it happen. I will point this out, okay? And this is really important. I know that's the case, okay? I know that's the case. I know that's why UCLA just doesn't have nearly the level of dudes. And the Reds versus Dodgers is the perfect parallel, right? But should be pointed out. And I think NIL has something to do with it as well. Okay. You didn't get Bronny, didn't get Caleb Foster, you didn't get Dusty Stromer, right? You didn't get Jared McCain. Those guys are all Southern California kids. So I would buy him a fence. Right? Buy him a fence. Build a fence around Southern California. Yeah. And it's hard. You know, there's coaches be like, man, I can only have one LA dude because LA guys always got a bunch of hangers-oners. It's, you know, want to be agents, want to be actors, whatever. But I would buy him a fence because he's right. NIL is a major issue at UCLA. And they're concerned about you. It's hard to be good in both. And you need probably in the 2 million plus variety to just be an NCAA tournament team. Upwards of 4 million if you want to win the thing. That's what most people estimate. That's the real dollar amount for the entire team. So I like
next
your
one.
idea.
Let's get one more.
Double up on. I'll say a fence though, because all of that is true. Come on, man, you can't get any of these kids from Southern California.
Agreed. I'm with you. All right, last one.
You got to get them. When you lose Southern California, when you lose that job.
You're in trouble.
Now that's why you thought I was crazy. Like I don't think Louisville would be crazy to go and him to give out some of his buyout. Like if they don't get NIL, you're not winning at UCLA. I don't care if it's UCLA and all the Bruins like, hey, we're going to the Big Ten. We're like, really? You're not going to win those road games. And you have nobody's going to show up at home if you don't have dudes. So I don't think I know his buyout is, but all this stuff is negotiable. Louisville wants to be great. He's from Cincinnati. He won in Cincinnati. He's been an assistant under Rick Pitino, right? Been an assistant under Bob Huggins. He knows how to get stuff done. I don't think it's crazy for Mick Cronin to at least kick the tires on the idea of Louisville because they have what UCLA doesn't have, and that is NIL.
Still $16 million buyout for Mick Cronin. All right, last one. You got to be quick on this one. You got to be quick on your feet, and that I don't know if that's your strength, but Armando Bacot. Give me your holiday gift, your Christmas gift for Armando, my guy.
A lifetime country club membership to the country club of his choice in Chapel Hill. Right? People are going to tell me right, but people told him he made the mistake. Don't come back. No, dude, lean into what you got. I love Carolina guy. The late Eric Montross, he figured it out. Just terrible passing this week, dying from cancer. But even Eric Montross went away, played in the NBA, came back, and was the voice of the Carolina Tar Heels. Like, you're a Tar Heel. You don't make the NBA, you play overseas. Just always stay there. You'll always be a legend.
I want to say this. I want to see Mondo back in the Final Four because there aren't many more entertaining personalities and guys who are more upfront. I'll never forget a couple years ago when I took the mic at the Final Four, and he looked at me with a big smile and said, "I've been waiting to see you. I've been waiting all year," because I called him soft. And he did it in a good way. So, all right, coming up, you know what time it is, Doug. We're making our picks and picking winners for some of the big-time matchups this weekend. Find out who we're siding with. And I want to know Doug's record. He keeps saying how great he is. I want to know his record when we return on Goodman versus Gottlieb. All right, Goodman versus Gottlieb. It's time to make our picks, and I'm told by our producer Dennis that you have crushed it on this, Doug. You've only gotten one wrong all year, so I stand corrected. I want to know what you are against the spread, though. Anyway, let's start with Arizona, Florida Atlantic. In Vegas, FAU, they've been good, but not great. Arizona's played, both of them have played great schedules, Doug. They've both played great non-conference schedules so far. And this is a good one for a Saturday that really isn't loaded with big-time games, 3 o'clock. I think I like Arizona in this one, even though, the one thing I'll say on this is FAU's guards shouldn't be overwhelmed size-wise by Arizona's guards, by Boswell and Caleb Love. My bigger problem is up front. Ballo, Keyshawn Johnson. I just don't think FAU's got an answer for Keyshawn Johnson.
Nope. There's a reason San Diego State played for and had a chance to win a national championship. He's not the only reason, but he's a big reason. And, one of the things that FAU is able to do is play 4 out, 1 in, throw it into a post. Problem is, it's really hard to do that against Arizona because you mentioned Ballo. They just have size where they can match up with you. I'm with you. I too like Arizona in this game.
All right, bragging rights. Illinois, Missouri, Friday night, 9 o'clock. You know, Missouri hasn't been great. I just saw Illinois. They're talented, man. This game, I just feel like no matter what, and again, I don't think Missouri's a tournament team this year. I really don't. I still think they keep it close. I'll go Illinois, even though the game where is the game? The game is in
St. Louis. Always in St. Louis, brother.
Always in St. Louis, right.
Game.
Yeah, I'll take Illinois there. I'll take Illinois.
I don't think it's – I mean, like, I think it'll be a closer game than – but I've grown to really like this Illinois team. No true point guard, so decision-making, end of games, breaking down a defense, not great. But, I mean, you throw Domask out there. I mean, Terrence Shannon, you talk about guys – I mean, you talk about one who left Texas Tech. Terrence Shannon left Texas Tech. He's having a great, not good year. Great year, averaging 20 a game. And you know, I love when they put Coleman Hawkins at the 5. Now you have like 5 guys who can play on the outside and handle, pass, shoot, score. I think Illinois, like, I'm willing to consider putting them in that. Could they be the second best team in the Big Ten category?
All right, last one, quick one. Rick Pitino, Dan Hurley, St. John's, UConn. Who do you like?
Come on.
What if Klingon's hurt?
Come on. I like UConn.
All right. I mean, it's still Rick
John's
Pitino.
Xavier? The story is more Xavier struggling than it is St. John's winning a game.
Yeah, no doubt. We got 2 of the best coaches in the game in that one. Again, Rick Pitino, Dan Hurley should be a fun one. All right, we'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Have a great Christmas, holidays, whatever you celebrate. Goodman, Gottlieb. We'll see you.